Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 6 2023 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic this week, it was a good week overall. Definitely bounced back, both against the spread and straight up. With both my picks, I am very pleased with how my results ended up. So far for this week, against the spread and straight up, against the spread, I went 9-4. Which equals 69.2%. And straight up, I went 8-5. That equals 61.5%. So definitely bounced back tremendously from my horrific against the spread record last week. This week against the spread, if you went off my predictions, at this point in the video, I went 9-4, which is beautiful. A lot of the games that I got wrong straight up, I ended up getting against the spread correctly, which includes Jacksonville plus 5.5, Pittsburgh plus 4.5, and Houston plus 2.5 due to a last-second field goal that let them win the game by 2, and I had them plus 2.5, so that gave me the nice cover there. So I'm very happy about that. But now, though, overall for the year, I am now against the spread 39, 36-2 against the spread, and straight up I am now 48-29. I believe I had Green Bay here Green Bay minus 1.5 to win this game, and I know that the odds have shifted, I believe, now to being the Raiders being a slight favorite, especially with Davante Adams being back from his injury, or being able to play through his shoulder injury, which is big. But I will gladly take that and move forward with my against the spread record at 39, 36-2. And straight up now, I am 48-29. So that equals out to be 52% against the spread. So through 5 weeks, a winning record against the spread with several picks to go. I am thrilled about that. I hope I can continue that over this week with a lot of different games having very unique outcomes. And my straight up record 48-29. So I moved up slightly. So it wasn't the 6% jump I had last week, but I will take the 48-29. It equals 62.3%. I'm very much on my way to having a typical typical season with my straight up predictions. But it was a crazy week in the NFL, just as all of them are. You had Chicago have one of their best offensive games since Week 15 of the 2020 season when they beat the Washington Commanders 40-20 in an absolute rout. Justin Fields had a fantastic day, 4 touchdowns, back-to-back games with 4+ touchdowns. They ran it really well. I do want to send my best wishes to Khalil Herbert, who had a pretty significant and ugly ankle injury, which is likely going to sideline him for multiple weeks, from what I've heard. And I just thought the Commanders' defense was dreadful. Buffalo-Jacksonville, definitely a unique game to where Buffalo had stretches where their defense had thoroughly stifled the Jags, but unfortunately, due to the injuries to Matt Milano and Tre'Davious White, and they had another defensive tackle who had a pec injury, this defense got worn down. And by the end of the game, with Travis Etienne playing as well as he did, I do believe that the Buffalo Bills defense, I still think it can be solid, because I think even through the injuries, they still played effectively, and they play some weaker competition coming up, so that should help bolster their numbers. But overall, do I see this Bills team as a Super Bowl team with those 2 injuries, and if more of them keep piling up? No, I do not. But kudos to Jacksonville, though. ETN had almost 160 scrimmage, or over 100 plus scrimmage yards, 2 touchdowns, rushing and receiving. Calvin Ridley stole the show in the second half. He's basically the only receiver that kept getting open for Jacksonville was Calvin Ridley on goes and out routes, which was impressive. And, that game was interesting. Then you had some blowouts. Miami blew out New York. The Panthers got blown up by the Lions. Kudos to those teams. They handled their business, and everybody could move forward. Though I do want to say, for Carolina fans, once again, Bryce Young, or maybe not so much Bryce Young, who is definitely out of the 3 rookie quarterbacks, playing the worst out of all of them, but Mr. Frank Reich, everybody, he's a bum. Frank Reich is a bad football coach, and even though Steve Wilkes I did not think deserved the job, they should not have hired Frank Reich as a coach, because he has shown to you every single week this year, both on the offensive and defensive ends, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's lost 8 straight games. The Panthers thought that they could bring their first ever quarterback, to save this team, And Frank Reich is making the Panthers, I think, look even worse. If I'm Matt Rule, who's doing a decent job in Nebraska, I'm laughing back saying, I got 30 plus, I got 50 million coming from Nebraska. The Panthers are still paying me, part of some money. So, and let Frank Reich burn to the ground because he's not a good coach. Everybody saw this in Indy, where he got blown out by the Patriots and Mac Jones. Why couldn't people have seen this coming, forward this year? Why couldn't people have seen it? I'm sorry, I just don't get it. I really don't. I look at Frank Reich as a pathetic coach, and they may go, if you look at their schedule of how they're playing, they may go 0-17. I think they are that bad or that inconsistent with injuries on the offensive and defensive line secondary that I do expect Frank Reich not to possibly not win a game. And at that point, you might have to fire Frank in a one-year sample because, again, only Hugh Jackson got that distinction. And I think Frank Reich, if you do that, deserves to have the same distinction for those other two coaches for a winless season. And then if you look at a few of the other games, and I'll mention them through the rest of my picks, I thought San Francisco put on a masterful display against the Dallas Cowboys. It wasn't even really a contest. Fun fact here, everybody. The Dallas Cowboys had allowed 41 points through their first 4 games this year. After last night, they had given up 42 by the Niners themselves. Brock Purdy played incredibly well. 8th straight game with 30-plus points scored offensively. Christian McCaffrey with his 15th consecutive game with a touchdown. This Niners team, in my opinion, hands down, is the best team in the league. Full stop. They have really no flaws. And I think the only thing that's going to get them is if somebody gets hurt or if they really genuinely believe that they are that good that they take their foot off the gas and let a team play around with them, especially, and get them to, make a few errors or mistakes that aren't Niners like, and they lose a game off a fluky way or a dominating fashion. If not, if this Niner team keeps playing this motivated and consistently, I do think they do have a chance to run the table because I think they are that good and the schedule looks that light in my opinion. So, but let me get into my picks and I'll explain the rest of my thoughts on each game. Oh, I guess one more thing before I do that. Let me tell you the buys for this week. The Green Bay Packers and Pittsburgh Steelers are on buy this week. So Jordan Love, Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, Packers defense, the Packers kicker, I don't know his name, the Steelers defense, Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Pat Freiermuth, Deontay, Allen Robinson. If you have any of those players in your fantasy, Chris Boswell, if you have any of those players in your fantasy teams, the Green Bay Packers and Pittsburgh Steelers bench them because they will not be playing this weekend. So time for my picks. So this Thursday, when the 1-4 Denver Broncos travel to Kansas City to take on the 4-1 Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 10.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Kansas City or minus 10.5 and Kansas City straight up. Then the next game in London, the last London game of the year, when the 3-2 Baltimore Ravens travel to Tennessee or travel to London to take on the 2-3 Tennessee Titans. The Baltimore Ravens are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Baltimore here to win straight up, but give me Tennessee plus 3.5. And then on Sunday, when the 2-3 Washington Commanders travel to Atlanta to take on the 3-2 Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons are 2.5-point favorites in this game. And shout out to Chris Carter Hatbox. Kudos to your Falcons, buddy. They've done a great job this year. They've won a lot of gritty games and tough ones. And they're undefeated at home and winless on the road. So I am kind of going against the grain here. I did last week with Houston. And another young quarterback gets to go into Atlanta and try to beat Desmond Ridder. And it was the same point spread. And just like last week, I will do it once again. If they do win, I will give Atlanta their props. 4-2 record is 4-2. But I'm just not sold on how well they do. But I'm going to take Washington here plus 2.5 and Washington straight up to win. Then the next game, when the 1-4 Minnesota Vikings travel to Chicago to take on the 1-4 Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears are 3-point favorites in this game. In a bit of an upset here, I'm going to take Chicago here plus 3 and Chicago straight up. Though I do want to say this, there is a caveat here. If Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson decides to play, I'm going to keep my Chicago plus 3 pick regardless, but I am going to take Minnesota straight up to win if Justin Jefferson, the great wide receiver, is deemed active for the game. And even though I did hear earlier today that he did not practice today, he's just getting more tests done. They don't know how significant the hamstring injury is, but if it's that significant, I do think that will cost him some time, which should torpedo the end of the Vikings season if it wasn't dead already. That's all like Chicago +3 and Chicago straight up. The next game, when the 3-1 Seattle Seahawks travel to Cincinnati to take on the 2-3 Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are 3-point favorites in this game. In one of the unique odd hedges of this game, I'm going to take Seattle here +3, but I'm going to take Cincinnati straight up to win. Then the next game, when the 5-0 San Francisco 49ers travel to Cleveland to take on the 2-2 Cleveland Browns, the San Francisco 49ers are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here -3, and San Francisco straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-5 Carolina Panthers travel to Miami to take on the 4-1 Miami Dolphins, the Miami Dolphins are 14-point favorites in this game. That is a huge number, but they were able to cover a 15-point spread just the other day, 31-16. So if it's 14, they can cover. They've done that at least pretty much in 2 of the last 3 games. I will take Miami here -14 and Miami straight up. Then the next game, for the control of the AFC South, when the 3-2 Indianapolis Colts travel to Jacksonville to take on the 3-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 4-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Jacksonville here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Indianapolis +4. Then the next game, when the 3-2 New Orleans Saints travel to Houston to take on the 2-3 Houston Texans, the New Orleans Saints are 1.5-point favorites in this game. Give me New Orleans here -1.5 and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-4 New England Patriots travel to Las Vegas to take on the 1-4 or 2-3 Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Las Vegas here -3 and Las Vegas straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-4 Arizona Cardinals travel to Los Angeles to take on the 2-3 Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams are 6-point favorites in this game. Give me Los Angeles here -6 and Los Angeles straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-1 Detroit Lions travel to Tampa Bay to take on the 3-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Detroit Lions are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Detroit here -3 and Detroit straight up. Then the next game, when the other undefeated team in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles, to 5-0. Philadelphia Eagles travel to New York, or just go up the turnpike to New York to play the 2-3 New York Jets. The Philadelphia Eagles are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here -6.5 and Philadelphia straight up. Then the next game, the Sunday night game, in the Battle of New York and the sadness for the Giants, is the Cryants of New York. The 1-4 New York Giants travel to Buffalo to take on the 3-2 Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 14-point favorites in this game. And I will take Buffalo here to win straight up, but I will take the New York Giants +14. Not because I think the Giants' offense is phenomenal, but I do think the injuries for the Buffalo Bills secondary and defensive line will start to catch up to them. And I do think for the Giants, for as much as awkward as they looked and how inept offensively they looked, outside of a few key plays or a few key moments, I feel like with the Giants, like, they can have kind of a similar opportunity against Buffalo to where nobody thinks they're going to win and nobody thinks nobody should pick them. But I do think Buffalo can let the Giants hang around enough for them to cover. And in the Monday night game, when the 3-2 Dallas Cowboys travel to Los Angeles to take on the 2-2 Los Angeles Chargers, the Dallas Cowboys are 2-point favorites in this game. Give me the Dallas Cowboys here -2 and the Dallas Cowboys straight up. All right, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Kansas City Chiefs over the Denver Broncos. This is a game to where it is fairly easy to pick. I want to give the Chiefs their credit. Patrick Mahomes becomes the 10th quarterback in NFL history to beat every single team besides his own. And he's the first quarterback to do that before the age of 30. The Chiefs defense has held opposing offense to 20 or fewer points in 4 consecutive games, and they have a top 10 defense in terms of both points and yards. Thankfully, they got Travis Kelce. He got hurt in the middle of the game, but it was considered a low ankle sprain, and he was able to push through it. Fortunately, after Thursday, I don't even think they would need Kelce technically against a horrible Denver defense. But I think that, for me, it may not matter. And I think the other aspect of the Chiefs here, for the Chiefs' perspective of this week, is everybody's going to talk about what happened at the end of the game against the Vikings, to where there was definitely a pass interference call that was not called that should have been in my book. But besides that, if you want to debate about that, that's fine. There should have been an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for L'Jarius Sneed taking off his helmet in front of the referee and the referee telling him to put it back on or he was going to throw the flag should have been out already. And it was a bad illegal hands to the face by Drew Tranquil. But at the end of the day, just very much like the Patriots, the Chiefs seem to have every call go their way in these moments. So that's where I feel like for the Chiefs, it's good to be them in this idea. And this Chiefs Broncos game, look, also Patrick Mahomes, they're the longest active streak in the NFL is the New England Patriots beating the New York Jets 15 straight times. The second longest active streak is Patrick Mahomes playing the Denver Broncos. He's played them 11 times in his career, 11 wins, no losses. Basically, every game has fundamentally been a dominating performance offensively. Sometimes the defense can hold up. But also, I just look at the Broncos. They have the second worst defense in the league through 5 games in NFL history. And Russell Wilson looked incredibly inept against a Jets defense that through 3 quarters only had 66 yards. And he had the costly fumble, which turned the game around. I do want to shout out Jaleel McLaughlin and Patrick Surtain. Patrick Surtain got his first pick of the season. And Jaleel McLaughlin, since Javonte Williams went down, has gained 192 scrimmage yards and 2 total rushing and receiving touchdowns in the last 2 games. So I've been very impressed with McLaughlin's output and production. But in this game where you're looking at the Chiefs and the Broncos, the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. You can make that point. Miami probably is close to number 2. But the way that this Broncos team has played, it's in Kansas City. They're coming off a trip from Minnesota. They're going to be motivated. They want to show another dominating performance like they did against Chicago, and I feel like they will carbon copy that and make Russ have one of the worst losses of the career. And the Chiefs win handily, at least by 11. So that's what I Kansas City are minus 10.5. I can't say straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Tennessee Titans. This game, to me, why I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens to win this game is just luck of the quarterback. And to me, when I look at the Baltimore Ravens and Steeler game, that was just absolutely pathetic how inept the offense was, how there were 8 drops from the Ravens receivers and tight ends. We came into the game only having 3. And he had 8 horrific drops throughout the game. But I also just want to mention to everybody that Lamar Action Jackson, this guy we paid $52 million to, one of the 5 highest quarterbacks in the league, he's inconsistent. You never know what's going to happen. Why did you let Joey Porter Jr., why are we getting Joey Porter's son making huge plays on Odell Beckham? You could argue, yeah, Beckham should have made more of an effort, but Lamar threw a fade, a horrible fade that should have never been thrown, and that was basically the costing point of the game. Also, he fumbled at the end, and this dude, as great as he is, and as bad as our receivers were, he's just not that good on a consistent basis. I feel like I have a more darker, I have a, you know what it is? Here's a great, he is Michael Blackson, Dak Prescott. If anybody gets that reference. That's what Lamar Jackson is. Michael Blackson, Dak Prescott with more mobility, a little bit of a better arm, but they're just these inconsistent ebbs and flows to where at the worst times he makes mistakes that cost this team games, and also the coaching was horrible too, to be fair. That, when you're in a 2-point game and your coach on a 4th and 2, instead of kicking a 41-yard field goal where you have the most accurate kicker in NFL history, he decides to go for it and fails, and that allows the Steelers to gain more points and save a possession that gets them the victory. Also, here's another fun, crazy stat. Through this series, over the past 16 years after this game, the Pittsburgh Steelers have only scored 9 more points than the Baltimore Ravens have through this rivalry through the past 16 years, which is incredible to think about with how many games have been played and how many tough wins and losses each team gets. Also, Baltimore now has lost 6 of the last 7 against Pittsburgh in this rivalry, which is baffling to me. But Lamar Jackson, more melanin, Michael Blackson, Dak Prescott, just every week, you never know what you're going to get. And if you're getting paid that much, you have to consistently show every week that you can make the plays or make decisions that get teams victories instead of costing them games. Because now the Pittsburgh Steelers, with as inept an offense as you can have, lead the division and look comfortable, at least with 2 division wins under their belt, both at home. But still, they are 2-0 in the division, which allows them to be the leaders of the AFC North through 5 weeks. But the reason why I'm going with Baltimore is just because of the quarterback play. Because as much as I just got on Lamar Jackson, the Tennessee Titans have not been that much better, if not a little more inept worse. The Titans, in odd weeks this year, in weeks 1, 3, and 5, the Tennessee Titans have scored a grand total of 1 offensive touchdown in those 3 games, and they have kicked, I believe, 9 field goals. In 3 games in weeks 1, 3, and 5, they've scored 1 offensive touchdown and kicked 9 field goals for those numbers. I do want to, but speaking of the kicking, though, I do want to shout out Nick Folk, the kicker that they got from New England. He has been perfect this year, and due to all those kicks, he has scored just as many points as the Titans' other offensive players have, which is amazing, which is kind of like bizarre that they've scored, I guess, 6 total touchdowns, and he's been able to kick through the other games and combine 36 points. I think the Titans, also I do want to shout out Al Shire, who had 15 total tackles and played fantastic. And these two teams have split the last 10 meetings. And in a game like this where you have 2 interesting running games, 2 offensive lines that have had positive and negative moments throughout the season, it's just going to come down to quarterback, and I will trust Lamar Jackson with the Ravens, because the other time the Ravens lost, they ended up the next week coming out with a big 20-3 victory. I expect the Ravens to respond once again in England in kind and show that for the Tennessee Titans, it's going to be a tough, gritty, physical game. But just like the last time, I think the Ravens pulled out. But that's why I like Baltimore here, straight up, at Tennessee plus 3.5. The next game, the Washington Commanders over the Atlanta Falcons. This is one to where I am taking Washington to win this game based on the fact that I believe that defense is better than what it showed. They allowed a season-high 178 rushing yards, and offensively, they didn't even use scary Terry McLaurin effectively at all. He only had 49 receiving yards through the game. And I trust Washington. There have been moments with Sam Howell against the Eagles and the Broncos that he's been able to throw the ball effectively to Dotson and McLaurin and Thomas, and he has Gibson and Robinson. I trust this Commander offense under Eric Bieniemy to bounce back, because he said after the way they played against the Bills in Week 4 against Philadelphia, that he cleaned that bleep up, and he played a much more effective and consistent game, and I expect the Commanders to do that here. Against the Falcons team that, it's bizarre, because, look, Desmond Ridder had a career high in passing yards. He did a good job distributing the ball to Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Drake London had a career high in receiving yards. And I thought the Falcons defense did a pretty solid job against the run of the of the Texans, who have a decent back in Dameon Pierce. But when you look at this game, I just think Sam Howell and that defense should be able to put more pressure on the Commanders' offensive line compared to what I think the Atlanta defensive line can do against Washington's offensive line. And I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a unique game. And honestly, I think Sam Howell's a little bit better than Ridder. But this game will determine who the 3rd best quarterback of that 2022 draft class is, because I believe Brock Purdy is comfortably in the number 1 seed because he's been the best quarterback since all of them come out at different times. I just think, the conversation will be now, if Ridder wins, or for Ridder and Howell, is which quarterback is better in the 2022 class. I still think Pickett would be second, but that 3rd spot is very wide open. And this game, with as much talent as they have on either side, feels like a good way to settle that debate about who is the 3rd or 4th best quarterback in the 2022 NFL draft class. And I thought the Falcons did a good job against the run yesterday against the Commanders, and I think they will, in this game, show some fight. But I just think the Commanders, they're mad and motivated, and I think they take it out on an Atlanta offensive line that throughout the year is shown to have some frustrations and breakdowns that will go right into Washington's advantage. So that's why I like Washington here, plus 2.5, and Washington straight up. The next game, the Chicago Bears over the Minnesota Vikings. This is a game to where I want to give Chicago their credit. Chicago played a sensational offensive game. DJ Moore had a career high in receiving yards and touchdowns with 3. Justin Fields looked like a genuine quarterback. And that Bears defense, after playing so badly through multiple first halves, got pitched a shutout through the first half of the Commanders game. And basically, until garbage time, the Commanders really could not move the ball that effectively. And when you look at this game, it's one of those aspects to where I know Desmond Ridder, I just said, is undefeated at home, but I just don't see on a consistent basis the Falcons being able to play that type of gritty, tough football without any turnovers. And I think that Washington pass rush will get to Desmond Ridder, and I think he will now be able to make some plays that Sam Howell would be able to make. Should be a great game between two young QBs that are trying to help position themselves in the draft, post-draft rankings. But at the end of the day, in this game, I'm going to trust that the Commanders' defense gets back in track and they beat the Falcons in a tough, gritty, at least by a less than a field goal game. So that's all I like. Washington here plus 2.5, and Washington straight up. The next game, the Cincinnati Bengals over the Seattle Seahawks. This is one to where I want to give Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase their props after having an abysmal offensive stretch through the first 4 games of the year. They end up playing the Arizona Cardinals, and everything looks great and right and moving forward. Jamar Chase had 15 receptions and 3 touchdowns. He is only the 5th receiver to do that in NFL history. And when you look at a moment like this game, to where, for me, with the Bengals, I think they pull out this game due to the rough shape that the Seattle offensive line's in. Look, Seattle did a great job on Monday night against Daniel Jones, whipping him around, 11 sacks. They had Devin Witherspoon had a 96-yard highlight reel interception return. Pete Carroll's undefeated on the East Coast this year. And I feel like with the Seahawks, they'll be able to put up a fight. But with how Cincinnati's played and the confidence they can get from that Jamar Chase performance, hopefully they get T. Higgins back, who's dealing with a rib injury. And I love how that defense played, causing 2 significant turnovers. I will trust that the Cincinnati Bengals at home, coming off a rested Seahawks team who has a winning record after the bye to Pete Carroll, though he's lost the last 2 or 3 games after the bye. I think the Bengals pull us out in a very unique and gritty, tough fashion to get them to at least 500 going into the bye, and we'll see what happens to the Bengals postseason hopes once that happens. So, but that is why I like Seattle here plus 3, but Cincinnati straight up. The next game, the Chicago Bears over the Minnesota Vikings. This is one to where I'm taking the Chicago Bears based on how effective the offense was. DJ Moore had a career high in receiving yards and a career high in passing touchdowns. Only Alshon Jeffrey in a single game back in 2013 was able to put up more receiving yards in a single game for the Bears franchise. But this game, when you look at it, the Vikings, once again on the first drive, fumbled the football. That's not very good. That's frustrating. But when you look at this Vikings-Bears game, I think not having Justin Jefferson would be significant, and I think that changes the entire dynamic of the Vikings offense as a whole. I think it shrinks the field. It caps up the explosive plays. And if he doesn't play, I think the Bears, through that performance and the performance 2 weeks ago against the Denver Broncos, even though they had a horrific collapse, I do believe that the Chicago Bears should win this game based on the confidence that Justin Fields is playing with, along with the myriad of significant offensive injuries for the Vikings at this moment. So, but that's why I like Chicago here plus 3 and Chicago straight up. And once again, like I said before, I will take the Minnesota Vikings straight up if Justin Jefferson is deemed active on Sunday. So look out for that pick update as well. If no pick update happens, I stuck with Chicago regardless. And I hope everybody enjoys that game just like I will. So that's why I like Chicago here plus 3 and Chicago straight up. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Cleveland Browns. This game to me comes down to the 49ers having the best offense in the league, having the best defense in the league, being the most dominant and consistent team, playing a Browns team that is just not good enough without their quarterback and their running back. They also had some other secondary issues which were concerning. But just watching this Niners team, 8 straight games of 30-plus points. The only quarterbacks besides Brock Purdy to do that are Kurt Warner, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady. So he becomes the fourth quarterback to lead his offense through his quarterback into an offense like that. They have been thoroughly dominant on the defensive side, having 3 sacks, 9 QB hits, and just constant pressure through Dak Prescott's body and face the entire way through. And the Niners look, as the best team in football, and it's not really particularly close. I do think Cleveland is a unique challenge. They are coming off a bye, and their defense is one of the best in the league. And the Browns have some confidence now after what happened in Pittsburgh yesterday that the Browns still can win this division. And I think playing the Niners in this mode will be a unique opportunity for them. But I'm taking San Francisco just based on having the clear better roster, the clear better coaching, and a bit of a better quarterback at this point. I do think Deshaun and Brock are close in pure ability. But I'll take Brock Purdy going up against most teams besides Philadelphia in this bout with all his confidence bring from ear to ear. Do I think Cleveland has a shot? Yes, I do. Because I do think Cleveland has a defense that can let them hang around. And if Brock Purdy throws his first interception of his career against Cleveland Browns, I think that's all it needs to start snowballing into momentum. But I don't expect Brock to do it because in only 12 games, or in 10 games so far in his professional career, he has only had one snafu against them a long time ago. And also, Kyle gets to go back to a team that employed him as the quarterback coach back in 2014. So that's a cool moment for him. But that's like San Francisco here -3 and San Francisco straight up. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the Carolina Panthers. This is one to where Carolina is the worst team in the league. Miami's the #1 offense in NFL history. They have gained over 2,500 yards of total offense. That is a first time in NFL history, along with Devon Achane, that is now fourth in the league in rushing. He's been absolutely dominant through his runs. And when you look at the Panthers, Bryce Young threw 2 more interceptions, and it's not looking great. I think Stroud and Richardson have shown flashes, even though Anthony Richardson is suffered a grade 3 AC joint sprain, so he's probably out for at least the next month. He could arguably put on the IR as well, which I think would be significant. But when you look at what this Panthers-Dolphins game entails, it's just the worst team in the league against one of the best offenses. The Giants defensively only scored 1 touchdown and kicked 2 other field goals to end that game in a decisive play. And I expect with the Dolphins coming into it motivated, still trying to chase the Eagles and Niners as the 2 best teams in the league. I think the Miami Dolphins thoroughly come into Carolina and win the game handle. So that's all like Miami -14 and Miami straight up. The next game, the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Indianapolis Colts. I'm taking Jacksonville here based on the fact that Anthony Richardson is out for this week and Gardner Minshew was a quality backup. Can make some plays, and he may make the game a lot more competitive than the Jaguars thought. But with no Richardson, Jonathan Taylor still coming back slowly and incrementally, I do expect the Jags to win this game based off the dominance they had in London through the last 2 weeks. So that's why I like Jacksonville here to win straight up at Indianapolis +4. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud, I want to give him some credit. First quarterback in NFL history to have thrown as many pass attempts as he has to start a career and not thrown an interception. 186 or 196 pass attempts from C.J. Stroud in 5 career games. Still no turnover, which is amazing to me. And New Orleans, look, I want to shout out Alvin Kamara. He had he had his 73rd touchdown of his career, so he's now the all-time Saints overall touchdown leader at 73. Congratulations to that man. And the Saints just played bully ball pretty much the entire way through the game. Tyrann Mathieu of another career pick 6. Chris Olave was running wide open. Rashid Shaheed was making some plays. Michael Thomas made some plays. There were a lot of just thoroughly bad performances by the New Orleans Saints. But I am taking the Saints to win this football game based on the fact that I believe Derek Carr with that defense, he looked the most accurate and consistent I've seen him all year due to that calf injury. I think the Saints will hold on to win in a scary, unique, tough environment, which is Houston. But I like the Saints more well-coached, stronger defensive front, and I can't trust Stroud with the strength in the back end for the Texans to be able to make a play and win the game. So, but that's why I like New Orleans here, -1.5, New Orleans straight up. The next game, the Las Vegas Raiders over the New England Patriots. This is one to where I am taking the Las Vegas Raiders because the Pats' offense is horrible. The Pats team is, I believe, the worst team in the AFC, the second worst team in the league overall. And it's time to make significant changes to the team based on the fact of where Belichick and his team are moving forward. You can't get blown out in 30-point games in back-to-back weeks. And I think that the Saints win this game based off of what I would say is how effective their defense will be against C.J. Stroud. And I will tell you this, is a bit of a hot take, and I can be dead wrong. I will guarantee you this now. C.J. Stroud, after 186 pass attempts, will throw an interception against the Saints, which will end the streak and cause the Saints back to focus to their brand of football. And then when you look at the Raiders, this is something to where I'm not the biggest Josh McDaniel or Raider fan at all. But I objectively know that the Patriots and Raiders at this point, the Raiders are the better football team. There's no Jacoby Myers, who is now on the Raiders, ironically, and there's no Chandler Jones. So if Mac Jones tried that again, it might not be the same result, but it's just one of those aspects to where you watch the Raiders and you watch the Patriots and you don't want to see how inept the Pats offense is, so you just flip to a different channel, watch a more competent team actually play football. So, but I'm taking New Orleans over Houston here due to the fact of the more experienced quarterback. Was concerned about the lack of offense, which is frustrating. And I just trust the Saints to get enough pressure defensively to make C.J. Stroud have a tough day. And I do expect C.J. Stroud to throw his first career interception today against the Houston Texans. So that's why I like New Orleans here, -1.5, New Orleans straight up. The next game, the New England Patriots, the Las Vegas Raiders over the New England Patriots. I'm taking the Raiders here because the Raiders are just better than New England. Jimmy Garoppolo's back. The Patriots have one of the worst offenses in ineptitude. And I just trust that the Raiders, fully healthy, are better. And I might have mentioned this before, but I'm going to say it again. No Jacoby Myers, no Chandler Jones, so there's not going to be a repeat of that. And I just think for Bill, this has to go down all the way to the skids for it to end. And I think he does it against the Pats in a brutal way, which causes this downward spiral to go into Buffalo next week. So, more talented team, have a little bit more of a competent offense. And I trust them coming, staying at home. There's bad aura here. And Mac Jones playing as inept as he is. This might be Mac Jones' final home start or final game of his career. But I do not see, even as much as I like Mac Jones, them bringing him back or not trying to at least bench him for the rest of the season. So that's why I like Las Vegas here -3 and Las Vegas straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams over the Arizona Cardinals. I'm taking the LA Rams in this game based on the fact that I've seen enough out of the Rams. Cooper Kupp had 8 receptions, 118 yards, and a touchdown. Puka Nacua had 70 yards and another touchdown. So they have a phenomenal two-man receiving group. Unfortunately, the Rams defensive line could not get a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts all day. They did get Witherspoon for that insane pick in the end zone, which I thought was incredibly impressive. And the Rams just look fundamentally better. The Cardinals at 1-4 are a spunky team. The Cardinals, I think, are a bit, feisty. They play every game effectively and hard and consistently. But when they play better teams or just more competent quarterbacks, Josh Dobbs didn't have an interception until yesterday, and he threw two, including a horrible pick six to Cam Taylor-Britt, which basically changed the momentum of the game back in Cincinnati's favor. I just think it's going to be a rough day for Arizona in this environment where the Rams, they know they're a good team, or a 2-3. They know that they're a decent team because they were competitive against the Niners. They beat the Colts in overtime, and they were in a competitive game against Philadelphia. So once you play a team that doesn't have the expectation and a talent drop as much as they have, I think it's an easy decision to take the LA Rams to win this game. If you took Arizona +6, I get it. But I think the Rams, they're healthier. James Conner going out of an injury was significant, and I don't like the chances of him playing and being hobbled. Even though I like Rondale Moore as a player, I do expect that the Rams easily win this game, and as they get revenge for what happened last year with the backup quarterback game. But could the Cardinals cover? Sure. I think the Cardinals have shown that they will fight through at least 2 to 3 quarters every game. I think at the end of the day, the Rams defense is coming back. They're mad, they're angry, and they would like to take on a division rival. So that's like the Los Angeles Rams here -6 and Los Angeles straight up. The next game, the Detroit Lions over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I am taking the Detroit Lions here to win this game based on the fact that the Detroit Lions are rolling offensively, to say the least. Very quickly, I do want to shout out Aiden Hutchinson. What a phenomenal one-handed interception. One of the plays of the week, if not the play of the weekend for how athletic that interception was. They got another interception later in the game. So 3 big turnovers for the Lions. I thought Sam Laporta played incredibly well. A 2-touchdown game, 31 plus yards. He is, in my opinion, already a top 7 to 8 tight end in this game. He's only played 5 weeks, but I think he's that effective. Jameson Williams was able to come back along with a couple other players from their gambling suspension. So even though he played, he didn't make much of an impact. I'm going to give Jameson a pass due to him just coming back into the game at this point. But I am going to take Detroit here because I just feel like fundamentally, if you're going to look at both these teams, both defenses are pretty solid. Even though losing Emmanuel Mosley for the Lions is significant. It was real tough, too, because he actually ended up tearing another ACL injury just coming back after having an ACL injury the year before. So that is absolutely brutal. I feel horrible for that guy because I think his NFL career is over, and I just think he should just retire after this year because it's like your own health and well-being is more important in a football game. If you tear an ACL and pull a Sam Bradford within at least a couple weeks. But I'm going to take Detroit here -3 because I trust that offense enough. First time since 1950 that they had 3 rushing and 3 receiving touchdowns in the same game. And I just feel like with the Bucs that if you're going to have a game where the defense is about even, quarterbacks are about even, the running games have some flash that are about even, you're going to go with the better quarterback, and I believe that's Jared Goff over Baker Mayfield. So that's why I like Detroit here -3 and Detroit straight up. And in the final 3 games, the Philadelphia Eagles over the New York Jets. The Jets got to play the Denver Broncos. And even against the Denver Broncos through a half, they were not great. I want to shout out to the defense. They got a safety, 2 straight weeks of a safety, which was incredibly impressive. And Breece Hall had over 170 yards on the ground. So there is a way if the Jets' offensive line can hold through the Eagles' defensive line. The problem with that is I don't expect that to happen. Mekhi Becton was having an injury to the game. And Elijah Vera Tucker, AVT, is probably going to be out for multiple weeks. He's probably the best offensive lineman. If he's out going up against one of the best defensive lines in football in Philadelphia, I expect the Eagles to easily and to fundamentally cover this game. I do think, though, one thing that should be mentioned that is unique is that Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Eagles and Devontae Smith, ever since week 2, when everybody saw with A.J. Brown how mad he was, A.J. Brown's been phenomenal, having over 100 plus yards in the previous 4 games since in the previous 3 games since he's had that conversation. And Dallas Goedert finally showed up with 118 yards, 8 receptions, and a touchdown. So that was nice to see Dallas Goedert still having a pulse and actually being able to play football. It's just Devontae Smith's frustration on the sideline is overly concerning due to the fact of where he wants to make more plays. He wants to have an opportunity. And it just feels like in this Eagles offense right now, it's just not there. And look, and I think the only thing I would say to Jet fans is that you could get the benefit of a trap because the Eagles do host the Dolphins next weekend, and that is a much bigger game. It is the game of the week, and I think that is on Sunday Night Football. But I'm going to take Philadelphia here because I just trust that defensive line and that offense enough to say that, Jalen and that offense can grind out another tough game. They have the best running offense in the league, and they have the best rushing defense in the league. So if you limit Dalvin and Breece Hall for the Jets offense, you basically need Zach Wilson to throw you a game, and he will throw you a game, but he will not win you a game. So that's like Philadelphia minus 6.5. Philadelphia straight up. And the final 2 games, the Buffalo Bills over the New York Giants. This is fairly easy, guys. Like Buffalo, as odd as it was watching that game, and they had their moments defensively, this is the New York Giants. The New York Giants, through 20 quarters of football, this is a genuine fact that everybody should realize for the Giants. Through 20 quarters of football, through 90%, if you take out the 2 quarters against the Arizona Cardinals, and take the other 18 quarters, regardless of what happened, the New York Giants, I believe, have scored 1 offensive touchdown and 1 defensive touchdown. I should be able to do this and say your offense and defense through 18 of 20 quarters, 90% of the season, have each scored the same amount of touchdowns. And I think that means also that the other games, they have kicked 2, 3, 4, 5 field goals. They've kicked 5 field goals and scored 2 offensive touchdowns in 18 of 20 quarters this season. That is absolutely horrific and pathetic. And it's just Daniel Jones dealing with a neck injury, and he may be okay. But Saquon and Thomas are still out. I don't think that would have mattered. I do think, if Daniel Jones is out, that should help them on the spread, you could argue. But looking at this game, Buffalo is just clearly better. They're mad, and the last time that they lost against the Jets, the very next week at home, playing an inferior team, they smacked the Raiders pretty easily, and it wasn't even really a contest. I think they won by 43-10 or 33-10. It could be very much the similar argument here. I'm just taking the Giants plus 14 because I'm banking on Tyrod Taylor to play. If he doesn't, I'll still take it because I think Daniel Jones showed some promise. But I just think 14 points is too much, and the Bills just seem to have a defense that's more susceptible compared to the Jets. But I'm taking the Bills here because they're fundamentally the better team, and a mad Buffalo team usually throughout the year means it's going to be a tough day, another tough day for the Giant fans move forward. So that's all like Buffalo here. Straight up at the New York Giants plus 14. And finally, the Monday night game, the Dallas Cowboys over the Los Angeles Chargers. As inept and awkward as the Cowboys looked, they're playing the Los Angeles Chokers in a stadium to where 70% of the fans are going to be Dallas Cowboy fans. The Chargers, they should get Eckler back. They should get talent back. But if it comes down to where both offenses are playing well and the defense match up to where their standards are going to be, if it's going to come down to coaching, Kyle Shanahan will always be able to outcoach Mike McCarthy. But I actually genuinely believe that Mike McCarthy should be able to outcoach Brandon Staley in a tough and gritty game. And also, if it's something to where if you're going to trust kickers, I'll take Brandon Aubrey over Cameron Dicker at this moment right now. Because Brandon Aubrey, since missing that first kick, has been basically perfect the rest of the year. And I just think for the Cowboys, they're going to stay out on the West Coast through the entire week. Maybe go to Oxnard and train, and then go to L.A. for the game and leave L.A. to go back to Dallas that night. And I just think the Cowboys, as bad as they were against a very good, the best team in the league, once they play somebody else that has equal talent or just more deficient coaching, the Cowboys should be able to win that one in a unique game that there's all the pressures on Dallas compared to the Chargers. And once again, just for everybody out there, so those are all my picks for this week. And once again for everybody, I'm going to take New Orleans -1.5 over the Houston Texans and the Las Vegas Raiders -3 over the New England Patriots. I will put the timestamps in for that part of the conversation. I hope through my video this week that you all saw what I was saying. But that is it. So until next week, where there's going to be the first 16 bye week, so it's a 13-game slate. But until next week, good luck to all players, coaches, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. And also, please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to see great people like Half Moon's Picks, Bridgewater's Finest, Geo Knows, Sports Fan Entertainment, Fire and Brim Sports, Logan Schiff. See all those guys and gals that make predictions like I do every single week. And until next time, everybody, for my Week 7 picks, this is Matthew Novak signing off. Until then, so long.